Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week in Tyranny. Thanks for joining me. It feels like it's been forever, but it's only Sunday, June 15th, 2025. It's episode 132. I come to you on this Sunday with a show packed with stories. There's a lot going on, and each separate topic you could really spend hours on. People have. I've listened to some of it, and there's a lot going on this weekend. I think it's by design. There's no shortage of corruption or unprecedented action going on in the world, so there's shit to talk about. So you could spend all this time and energy talking about all of it, but then how much time and energy do we really have? How much time do you have? I really only have Sunday. I got only Sunday to do this, and it's already 12:10. It's afternoon, and I still have to do laundry. I was already rushing by the time I was ordering my groceries 2 hours ago for delivery, by the way, which obviously you pay extra money for. Because for me to go buy them myself would cost even more time, and it's time that I really don't have. Uh, the reason we all have less time, I'm not the first one to say this, obviously, right? It's because we do all these little things. We have like little things that we need to do. You need to check your phone, you need to check your email, you need to turn on your podcast before you do something, before you make your food, before you eat your food. You got to watch the hockey game if you're so inclined. Some of these things are extra things that we like to do, right? Like that. But a lot of things are like things that we have to do, that are like new, that probably didn't happen in the 60s or 70s, right? Most of these things are due to having to work more. You have to work more hours, and then things cost more money. You got so many things that are subscription models now. You got to go and order stuff. You got to subscribe to this, check this. Also, at the same time, with more technology, it's more advanced. Technology is more advanced, yet it's more time consuming. The idea is that you can get things done faster, but really, with all this technology, more time slips through the cracks. You know, when your phone freezes, or when you have to check this and open up this, where you have to type in your password 2 times, and then you have to get the verification code, and then maybe you have to move the puzzle pieces around, right? Uh, Digitally, I think this is really insidious. Uh, why do things take so much more time digitally? They seem to be less secure, right? Like I have to type in my credit card information every time I order something, right? Because I had it saved, right? Saved the card information 2 times, and then 2 times I had somebody get into my account. And this is the whole thing, right? You got to call your bank. You got to be on the phone. You got to cancel these things, worrying about packages and sending things over. We have less time to do these things. So when we're talking about this show and these stories that I could talk about, even if you get your point across, even if I expose the government perfectly, even if you catch a criminal red-handed, right? It should be the end of it. But what does it matter if nobody has the wherewithal to follow up on it? People don't remember what happened yesterday. Somebody could blatantly lie and cheat and steal millions of dollars from a trust fund or something, and then people just forget. So, like people who have scammed their own fans, like Logan Paul and people like that, they can come out and then just do it again, and people don't remember. People think this crypto scam will be different, right? This crypto project. All that to say, there's very little continuity in the minds of people, right? That where we're losing the strings are becoming disconnected. So the stories that I'm going to talk about, I'll mention them all. The immigration protests, No Kings protests, the assassinations of the Minnesota lawmakers, and then Israel and Iran being in a conflict, bombing each other. But those events themselves are not that relevant. They're just another loud noise and flashing light. And all those things put together, all those flashing lights, they take away from you being well connected and well adjusted to your environment. Not the world environment, not the collective environment. Not the common experience that they show on the news and the internet. And when you go amongst people, you're all kind of in this common experience. You're all talking about the things that everyone else is talking about. But that gets to be very abstract, and that's what I see boots on the ground. Is people are living in this world. You think, like, what world are they living in? Well, if you open up your phone and start scrolling, you're kind of going to be in the abstract world, or what the trends are. But what actually matters is your concrete daily life, what your mood and health is like on a daily basis, what your immediate everyday relationships are on a day-to-day basis. That's like concrete daily life. And when it comes to the concrete daily life of a nation of people, what's least relevant is what political system is in place. Like who the president is, what the rules even are, what the laws are, that's least relevant. But most relevant is how the people live, their spirit of life. So it's what philosophy they practice, not what laws are posted, right? Like not what the official laws are, but what the practices of the people are. Like not what you say in church, but what you actually live. That's most important. It's about how we're living. And all of us, no matter what language you speak or how you vote, left or right, our lives are being taken away, stolen. Okay? And the causes of it are way deeper than the surface. That than what seems to be the most immediate problem. You know, Iran, Minnesota shootings, protests, immigration, those seem to be like the most immediate problems. But our problems run deep and systemic. It's like if you don't change the oil on your car, you don't take care of it, you have stuff open all the time, and you have water and moisture getting all through your engine, through your transmission, through your suspension. If you're driving a car like that, it doesn't matter which component gives out first. You know, you could replace a light bulb 5 times, but if the wiring is broken, then it doesn't matter if you replace it. So you have to trace that problem further down, and the system has to be well maintained as a whole. And that's how I see this with the stories that I'm going to talk about. Like whether it's nuclear war or high prices, you know, or weather weapons that are going to bring society down, or whether it's going to be the shots or the loneliness crisis, like whatever is going to bring society down, I don't really think it's that important, because the entire society is rotting from the inside, starting with you and your immediate concrete daily life. That's the point before we get into it, but let's get into it now. So I'm going to start the show furthest away distance wise, because that's kind of the theme here. It's like distance and connection. So furthest away and close the distance. So Israel bombed Iran. Rockets were sent from Israel to the nuclear facilities in Iran. Oh, before I even get started, people are going to be quick to say, wait a minute, Konrad. You mean America bombed Iran? That's what happened, right? But the rockets didn't come from the United States, did they? Right? So I'm not going to get into it. I don't want to talk geopolitics. That's the thing. I'm not going to get into the details, because just like I talked about with the riots last week, the details don't actually matter that much, because we generally know what's going to happen. It's about the big picture things. Why is this occurring in the first place? So let's get into the reason. The reason matters. The reason that is given. Like, why do we have an attack? Someone got bombed. Why did they get bombed? What is the reason? Anytime you get violence and killing, we always ask, what did he do first? Like, what did he do? What is the justification? And of course, the reason given is that Iran's nuclear program is a threat. So it's about Iran having nuclear weapons or nuclear capabilities, right? That's not a reason. That's never a reason to attack someone, right? Just because you have something dangerous in your hands, like that's never a reason to invade a country. I'm not talking about any specifics or details. I'm just talking about principle. And the reason I'm going into that is because I remember when I came here from Poland, in the mid 2000s, I remember this image, and it was the odometer, like your mileage on your car, and it was just 4 letters. It was IRA, and then the last one was Q, but the Q was moving, going into N. So it was like the mileage changing, like the one changes to the two. So it was Iraq changing to Iran, and that it's a genius little picture that conveys that this is a machine. It is a global war machine, and they invaded Iraq, and all the reasons that America invaded Iraq in the early 2000s was that was another one, weapons of mass destruction, right? Did they have the weapons of mass destruction? No. So that was proven false, right? Anyway, who was supposed to attack the towers? It was supposed to be Bin Laden, who wasn't even from Iraq, but they went and took out the Iraq leader, right, Saddam Hussein, and that was supposed to make sense, and it did make sense because it happened under George W. Bush, And we think the president's a retard now. The president was a retard back then. They're actually very similar in how dumb they speak, and they do speak very dumb. That's why I say dumb and retard, because I'm not gonna dignify them with any complicated language, because I could talk these people out the stands. You know, I would love to be in like a battle rap situation with some of these politicians, because I don't think they really can speak. They speak in a very structured way only when you have the environment for them. It's like a guy that, yeah, I'll give you a performance, but you got to have this setup and this setup and this setup. And at this point, are you really an artist? Are you really an orator? No, I think these people are just performers that do the same fucking pony trick every single time. Me, I'm telling people anytime, anywhere, we can talk any topic you want, because I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, under these leaders is when you can actually get this military action through, because apparently the things that motivate military action, they're very simple. The simpler the better. Patriotism, it almost has to be painfully simple. If there's any sort of nuance, it almost doesn't motivate people as much. It almost can't make too much sense, you know. And then anyway, there's a video that I saw. Another shout out to Ryan Christian and his show The Last American Vagabond. There's this video of this guy talking about foreign policy in Washington, and this guy was talking about how we can create the next event. We want to go to war with Iran, but we can push them a little bit. We can muddy the waters, and we can force that action. And this guy who was like, he wasn't like a conspiracy theorist. I'm talking. He's like working with government. Like, he's in those foreign policy meetings, and he's giving this presentation where he's like, we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. And then this president wanted to do this, but he had to wait for the sinking of the Lusitania. And we couldn't get into this war until that time. And then he's like, well, I'm not saying that's what we need to do now, but we could kind of put the pressure on them a little bit and create the next event, literally, you can go see that for yourself. And a side note, I'm gonna go into this little tangent. It always gets on my nerves when people talk about geopolitics. Like, Iran is doing this, but Israel, what they really want to do is this, and China's in the meantime is controlling it. China's the real threat because China's doing that, and Iran now has the weapons, but who really runs the show is America. And then Trump and Putin are actually turning on each other, and you can't trust Putin because he's actually playing a double game. And you're talking about this like it's a soap opera. You're talking about this. That's the same way you talk about the fans talk about the athletes when they watch a game. It's like, he really needs to step it up. His rating is not very good, and if they're gonna win this championship, they're gonna need their stars to be stars. And it sounds like you know what you're talking about, but you're so clearly an outsider. That gets on my nerves with people. So I stick to what I know. The big point is here that I hope nobody here actually believes the nuclear weapons reason. I hope nobody actually believes that the reason that wars happen is the reason that they give. It's never the reason that they give. But even if it was, like, let's analyze the ostensible reason, the reason that it's given, right? Because we have to be objective and talk about what's objectively there. So I'm not gonna assume that America is the one who bombed Iran. I'm gonna go with what I know happened, and that's that Israel sent the rockets to Iran, and then Iran responded with their own bombings, right? I'm sticking to that. What is the reason? They say it's because of Iran's nuclear program. And even if it was, I want to point out that there's no justification to invade a country that hasn't attacked you. Very simple. If you need to attack someone before they attack you, because you think they're going to attack you first, then do it. Do that. I'm not saying I'd never do that, but don't act like you're allowed to. This is the whole point. Don't act like you're in the right. Don't act like this is a real justification. It's just fighting. It's just conquest at that point. I think that gets lost often. Everybody wants to talk about having a moral right to do these things. A lot of times, it's just about who's stronger. It's just about who's gonna win. So, the world, the political world, the geopolitical world is very Machiavellian, but people want to think that it's so proper, you know. Anyway, next story. Next story is in my country now, but a different state, the state of Minnesota. And this was State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband who were shot and killed. Then the same man, 8 miles away, went and killed another Minnesota representative, John Hoffman, and his wife. Sorry, he didn't kill them, he shot them both, but John Hoffman and his wife survived. So we got one couple killed, one couple wounded. Um, you know, two Minnesota lawmakers shot between those four people. And as of this show's airing now, right, on Sunday, this guy's still on the loose, so he hasn't been caught. Now, real quickly, this guy, Vance Luther Bolter, his name. He was private security, had experience with private security. He also worked inside the government, inside the Minnesota government. Like he was in on some of those. He was within the government structure on the outer edges, right? He wasn't like a senator or anything, but he was working within government. And also, this guy had a private security company that did work in the Middle East and other areas. In other words, this is not your regular guy. This is another trained killer. Another trained killer operating on the fringes of government, carrying out terrorism. It's the same story as last week. I talked about last week the guy that killed his three daughters. Now, I'm not going to go into the breakdown, the occult breakdown of Vance Bolter's name, but I could. And the occult symbolism stuff, really, I'm going to leave it for separate videos. I used to do it as part of the show, then the show gets too long and I lose people. If I did a video like that, I would talk also about the lone survivor in the Indian flight, because I've talked about plane crashes specifically and how there's a single survivor left, and that happens so many times. And it's so statistically improbable, but it happens. That video probably won't happen because I have to prioritize. Again, no time, right? Because life. In that video, I would talk about the targeting of couples in recent attacks, like the Israeli couple, the young Israeli ambassadors who were shot. I would talk about the targeting of couples as opposed to children or mass gatherings, as we have seen before. Before, there were a lot of school shootings, a lot of concerts, mass gatherings. Now it's couples being shot in their home or at events together. That's a significant part of this. Of course, notice it's two couples. I'll mention this, we did find a publication, which I talked about last week, because the terrorists are always avid writers and chroniclers. These guys make sure they write down their ideology, who they're going to do, what their plans are, because that's what violent people do, right? They keep journals. Always remember that. You know what I think about that? If it's not a manifesto, it's a list. And with this, they say they found both, right? So I mention all those things because it's got all the markings of should I even say false flag? Because I like, again, that's a term that just got euphemized. This is the government attacking itself through working other people as their puppets. This is the government attacking itself. Now, the tactic, this guy dressed as a cop. He dressed as a cop and went to their door at like 3:30 in the morning. And it's been pointed out that this hurts the legitimacy of law enforcement. And it's interesting, that's one of the agendas. And I've talked about that agenda before. It's the agenda of making people feel less safe and trust police less. Now, I know that I always talk against government and the police is part of government and I speak out against police. But at the same time, when people got no confidence in their local police, that's working against the people as well. Because instead, the only thing that they're going to have confidence in is some military style force, a militarized police force, right? That happened historically. We have the example during the Nazi period in Germany in the 1930s, when Hitler was coming to power in his Nazi party. He had to remove all of the established ways of doing government, the majority and representatives and all of that, and he had to take that out and put in the dictatorial way of doing business. And that's what they did. The regular police got overrun, so then they brought in the Sturmabteilung. They basically brought in like a partisan paramilitary police force to deal with all the violence and then shut down all the political opponents in Germany. And there were a lot of false flags there One that I've talked about before, specifically, I point out the burning of the Reichstag, which the government, which Hitler's Nazi party did. They got a guy to burn down the government building to blame their political opponents. And after that is when basically they took over and he got dictatorial power. So that's another false flag or government attacking itself in order to become a stronger government and cut out their competition. So that's one agenda. The uncertainty in law and order is one agenda. The other agenda at play here is getting support for extra protection for government and putting more distance between politicians and the people they're supposed to be representing. So this scares the hell out of liberals, right? The guy voted for Trump. We're talking about the shooter. He voted for Trump. He kills progressive legislators. He's going to kill people that provide abortions. So when it comes to more protections for politicians and even them meeting behind closed doors and not letting people get anywhere close to them, when that comes around and you got to vote on it, I'm sure it's going to stick in their memory, right? That two of the people working in their job got killed. You know, it's like you hear, if you're working in construction, you hear about those guys that collapse, that the trench collapsed on them where they were working, or a guy fell off a ladder. Every time you're going off that ladder, you're going to think about it. So that kind of weaponized traumatic memory, right, goes a long way when you're trying to manipulate people. Meanwhile, the conservatives, they already saw their president get shot at, right? So they'll support stringent background checks and the president giving speeches behind bulletproof glass. They'll be all for it as long as you tell them that, hey, it's these colored hair guys, these tattooed people. They got the transgender medication in their medicine cabinets, and they're the ones getting the guns. So we got to watch out for them. Make sure only good citizens, background checks, make sure only loyal citizens get guns. Either way, same agenda. That's the agenda I've pointed out previously, and it's clear in a quote that I found in this article. They talked about this. The senator said she's also aware of an increase in threats against elected officials. She's quoted here, there has been a nationwide scourge of threats against elected officials and judges and election workers. You name it, this has been going on for the last decade, and it just keeps getting worse. So I already know that narrative. I already talked about that. It's like separating the unwashed masses from the politicians. You know, it's recreating that kind of feudal system, that there's a class of decision makers and there's a class of people who are under and lower, and they can't be trusted, like the untouchables. And then you get this protected group who is supposed to manage them, and that's supposed to be the politician class. And then you have the protected groups above those and above those, right? To sum that all up, though, it's really simple. All terrorism, it hurts the people being ruled, and it helps the people ruling them. And all attacks on government are done by government, their own government. It attacks itself. So that's two stories already. Now our third and final story is in my own city, and it's the protests. All over the country we had the protests. I talked about the LA protests last week, but yesterday there was one in Chicago, in my city. And there's an overlap here actually with the Minnesota story, because question, what's the reason that people are protesting, right? They're protesting very simple things. Like, what right does somebody have to, number one, the tariffs and the government in general? What right does someone have to stop companies from doing business together by charging money to let them in? Because that's what a tariff is. Like, if you can imagine, two people are about to go meet, and you stop them before they get there. Say, wait a minute, you want to do business with that guy? You got to give me something, right? It's like protection money. It really is protection money. So, and see, tariffs are just like tolls. They're just like the tolls on the road, which is well in place where I live. You know, I don't think tolls are all over the country like that, but I'm sure as you get close to the cities there are. So here you got toll roads. I take it a lot. Not to mention like parking and stuff. Parking is the same. Parking is just tolls. It's like you grab some territory and you know people are going to need to use it. It's a high access area. They need to use it, and you're going to charge them for it, even though you're not really giving them anything. You're just allowing them, because otherwise you're gonna charge them more money. It's just like, it's just the mafia with their protection money. But there's not much protesting there. But whatever, whatever. We got tolls, tariffs are new. So that's reason one. But the real reason behind these protests, the immediate one, is the no warrant raids. So they're saying, people are saying, what right does someone have to just grab people off the street, not targeted, like just pull them randomly because they might be illegal, because they might be illegal immigrants. You're going to grab a group of people and start checking them, papers, papers, papers. Yeah. So no crime being committed, no violence, right? No probable cause. It's just like casting a net and seeing what you find. Just like illegal searches, you know. You could say it's a routine traffic stop. You're gonna search somebody's car. A good chance you're gonna find some alcohol. You're gonna find some drugs, you know, because people want to have fun, and those things shouldn't be illegal anyway. Beside the point. The issue that people are protesting here is no warrant raids, and no warrant raids are always wrong, and they're just like invading another country that hasn't attacked you. You don't ever really have the right to do it. If you gotta do it, do it. But then the other side has a rightful claim to defend themselves. It's like, I always make this comparison. It's like if you have a known child predator, you have somebody that you find a child that says, hey, this guy did this to me, and you believe it, and then that guy, you know, say it's been a year, you don't really have, like, you didn't catch him red-handed, you don't really have evidence. All you have is that you think that guy is doing that. So really, the example I gave, I'll even throw that out. It's like, if, say you don't have the accusation of a victim, say you just think that guy is a danger. If I'm convinced about that feeling, I may kick that guy's door down myself. But it's not like I had the right to do it. I might be right, and I'll go ahead and do it. But I don't hide behind the natural law right to be able to kick somebody's door down, because that person has the right at that point to defend themselves, and they do. And this is what war is, you know. Nobody really has the right, but once that fight starts, it's like, that's what it is. It's just war. So people are protesting this. They have a reason to protest it. They have a reason to be upset. It's very clear that the government is way out of line with this stuff. Unfortunately, protests always get infiltrated and are used to fuck people over even more. So a lot of people don't get that. Just remember, the same groups of people that pay the cops are the same groups of people that sponsor the protests. So imagine this thing, and the puppet master paying both, because that's what happens. It doesn't matter if the protest is for the right reason, right? You're protesting for a legitimate reason. There are going to be people within your protest, if it gets big enough, that are going to be like making you look bad. They're going to be undermining your protest. They're going to sabotage your protest. Now that doesn't mean don't protest. I might still do it, but this is why I don't get very, you know, when I hear about protests, I never get real excited about it, because people in mass movements always seem to show the worst of themselves. I talked about that last week anyway. But I just want to point out that they both have a point, and that's the reason. That is the tactic. That is the dialectic with protests, and then the law enforcement crushing the protests. They each have a point, so it's very easy to play them against each other, because there's no clear ideological winner. It's just like rock'em sock'em robots. And as long as you get the two sides, you're going to get a whole lot of conflict. The worst is for the guy trying to cross, trying to go, trying to go through the road, or, you know, the guy that needs to get to work, or say he needs to pick their kids up from school. How are you going to tell a crowd of 1,000 people to move out the way because their children are in trouble? That's the problem, right? That's the problem with violence. It spills over, and the regular everyday people can't live. Anyway, one side is going to say the other side is full of agitator thugs and idiots on that other side, and they're going to throw bottles, and they're going to destroy buildings, and they have no right to do that, and they're right, right? So the guys, the cops, and then the guys who support the cops, they're right in saying that, because there are going to be agitators, there are going to be provocateurs. And then when the other side says, these guys on the other side, there's a bunch of traitors and cowards and order followers on the other side, and they're destroying the freedom of this country. They're also right. So both sides are right. But this is the thing that happens. I saw one video specifically where the cops are there, they're blocking off the road, and then this big crowd of people just goes and they collide with each other. They not actually collide, but they meet each other, right? So it's this, you're seeing this happen, and the camera's like right between them, and it was good entertainment. But it's also sad, because I saw two groups of people that didn't actually want violence. So, there was a lot of yelling and aggression, but these are like 9 to 5 people. These are like normal, gentle people, but they're pitted against each other in these sides, and I saw so much theatrical stuff going on. They go up to this barricade of cops, and they're like, "Let us through. Why can't you let us through? Move out of the way." And start chanting, "Let us through, let us through." It was just embarrassing. I'm surprised the cops weren't laughing. But then the guy goes like in between, and he tries to go through the corner. He's like, oh, I can't go through here. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to get through here. I'm not with them, or basically that sort of thing. There's more yelling, more. Then they start pushing them. They're like, push, but they're not really pushing them. Then there's just a lot of chaos and yelling, and then this one woman is like getting up in the cop's face and yelling, and then they finally, after like 3 times of trying not to touch her, they like push her over, and she falls. And when she falls, there's this like outrage, like, "Oh my God, why'd you do that?" Everyone pulls out their phone and they're recording. The camera pans like over to the left, and there's a guy just crying, like one of the protesters, like he's just overcome with the emotion of the whole thing. And I don't mean to make fun of any of these people, but they're not showing their best side, and the people who are orchestrating this gotta be laughing at them, because this isn't real action. Well, it's real action, but it's not impactful. It's a type of action like trying to tear down a wall with a hammer, but it's a brick wall. Like, you need some real heavy tools for that, right? And these protests were called the No Kings protests. Now, that was interesting to hear the No Kings slogan, because No Kings is like, this is anarchy. This is Mark Passio's thing: no masters, no slaves. Us in the natural law movement, this is what we've been saying for a while. It's a good slogan, and now they're using it. They're taking our slogans. I actually see it as a co-opting of the anarchist principles, and that's been happening for a while, that these people that say, "Hey, we just don't want any tyranny, we just don't want any oppression, we want freedom," but it's not actually freedom that they're fighting for. Or maybe it is to them, but the people sponsoring them are not fighting for freedom. They're fighting for the collapse of established societal institutions to be replaced with the new collective society. The new collective society, the new communist society. So, and this is down to the logo. It's like a cartoonishly drawn crown on Trump's head. No kings, right? This is the whole thing. This is, so it's a co-opting. Anyway, I saw a guy driving home from work with a sign, standing on the corner by himself, just with the sign, "No Kings," and something else. It was sad. I think, like, what goal was that guy trying to accomplish by being a human billboard with a 5-word message? He didn't inspire anybody, but he was there out of like passion. Like, it's clear that he was motivated to do something good. These people don't want life to be worse. These people who are working for the food distribution initiatives, and even with the United Nations, they're not trying to enslave the world. They think they're trying to feed the world and help people. They don't understand that the people pulling their strings they're the same people who are implementing the kings of today, these oligarchs, right? These so-called fascists and political leaders. Same people, same groups. But that guy, like an excited child, he went out onto that corner because he got a pre-packaged online message. And then you go outside into the real world and then no impactful action. And whether it's that one guy on that corner or those thousands of people downtown, they don't accomplish concrete real world change. But when you talk about protests, you know what I thought was the real protest yesterday? The Puerto Rican parade. The Puerto Rican Fest in Chicago. So I happened to be in a Spanish neighborhood yesterday, not too far from where I live. And I went to buy some shoes and then I bought some records because I got a turntable. I'm doing a lot of music stuff. And I saw semblance of life. I saw some life outside. I saw teenagers walking around. I saw couples holding hands. Just some people having fun. Like there was one woman with a boy, and she was just like singing and dancing around, like not in a crazy way, not like a crackhead, but just really enjoying herself. And I think, man, that it must be like wonderful memories being created for that boy right there. Like. He's going to grow up into a world that is real toxic, but, that those are the things you need to be armed with, I think, as you grow into this world. It's actually experiencing fun times and where the adults that you're looking up to are actually, doing something fun and exciting. So I saw a lot of that, and you don't see a lot of that in kind of my everyday routine, right? A lot of working, a lot of doing shows, a lot of stuff like that. But I saw it. And even the cashier was a white guy. Cashier was like a nerdy white guy. He told me about a music festival in September. It's actually Riot Fest. I'm not like a punk rock. I'm usually more of a rap guy, not a rock guy. A lot of Latin music more so than that. But anyway, Riot Fest. I might go to Riot Fest now, but I think that's funny because I had this show about riots and it's supposed to be this protest today and a Riot Fest. I'm gonna check it out. But Riot Fest, by the way, is not the only music festival happening in September. Also, Soundpath to Freedom, Soundpath 25, the online freedom music festival, is coming at you fast. What is it, mid-June? So this thing is like late August, early September. I'll be there. This is why you haven't probably heard a lot from me, because I'm over here way in the music. I'm trying to contribute to this a once-in-a-lifetime musical experience. And it's not once in a lifetime because it's going to be annual. But it's the first, and you never know if you're going to get another one, right? So all you can plan for is today and the next day. So anyway, speaking of living in today, I always admired Latino people, Hispanic people, for having the spirit of life. Like, not letting the conditions of your government or your environment affect their spirit. Like they could be externally oppressed, but it's not really going to change how they live. They're going to live how they live. And I like that. The family is really strong there too. The Polish community has this to a degree, but I think the Polish community has lost it. The Górale have it more so. The Highlanders, they have a stronger sense of family and community. But I see that, and I like that about them. Now, the Puerto Rican parade specifically, I know Puerto Ricans are known for being loud and obnoxious. I get it. But those 10-foot tall Puerto Rican flags on their cars, I loved it. I loved seeing it yesterday, and I think that's American culture. And I'm going to prove it. Okay? This is not going to be a woke moment for me. I'm gonna prove it. Whoever you are, don't let the mainstream culture become your culture. If you have a culture, if you have an identity, don't change it. And I like that about these people. Good luck having a raid over in Humboldt Park during that parade. Like, that was the real parade, because they're not walking towards a wall of cops to engage in negativity. They're taking over the street anyway, but everybody wants to be there, and everybody is having fun and living for themselves. That's true freedom. But they still got the manpower that if somebody was just trying to oppress them there, it wouldn't have worked out. And actually, people got a lot of guns at the Puerto Rican parade. I know. I'm not even gonna go into the details of that, but anyway, there was a shooting there, and that isn't great. I'm not saying that that's great, but 3 people were shot in Humboldt Park. Unfortunate, but if the government tried to roll tanks in there may have been a lot more than 3 people shot. But not to glorify that, not to glorify conflict and violence and mutual destruction, but I am glorifying the spirit, the festive spirit. Like, that is America to me. The Polish neighborhoods in the south suburbs, that's America. It's not just the American flags that are America. So I'm not saying that diversity itself is the strength of this country. I'm not saying what the progressives are saying. When you throw a mix of things together and just throw a bunch of different things together with no plan and thinking it's great just because there's diversity, no, that's not what I'm saying. But a mix of very strong individual cells, very strong cultures, stick together and throw them there, and they could still keep the integrity of their individual cell, but they can interact with each other freely. So I could have gone to that parade. Nobody's gonna tell me, hey, you're white, like you shouldn't be here. No, I could go there and interact freely and exchange. I was thinking about doing it, but no time. But that is a key point. I almost regret that I didn't say this in the first minute. Right, it's 42 minutes into the show, but that is the real diversity is strength thing. There are 2 key principles to freedom. One is the strong individual cell, whether it's just you as the person, having your principles, having your rules, or you with your family. It is the family being a strong individual cell, and then also your community, whether it's your church, your neighborhood, whatever. Like, that's your strong individual cell. That's part of freedom. And 2, the second part, which is just as important, is the freedom of exchange. Is that you don't have to do what your culture is doing. You could put on different clothes and a different flag and don't go to your fucking family holiday and don't go to church and go over there and party with those people, and you can do it. And that is very important, because that's the openness to live and enjoy life and experience new things and then exchange between each other. That enriches all of the individual selves. That's America. Thomas Paine wasn't born in America. He was English. One of the total leaders, total founding fathers, was not even born in America. Patrick Henry was born in America, the guy that said, "Give me liberty or give me death." He was born in America, but his dad was an immigrant from Scotland. So he's from a Scottish family. Paul Revere's dad was French. It wasn't American culture that won the American independence. It was the spirit of English, Scottish, and French people who refused oppression. So it's immigrants that saw opportunity for a better way of life and took it. I'm not saying that that's what today's immigration is all about. Don't get me twisted. But a lot of people who say they're pro-America are actually anti-America. And history will know you as the redcoats. Just because you fly the flag doesn't mean you fly the principles of this country. And history will know you as the redcoats, the traitors, only if individuality makes a comeback. Like, if we're successful. But if it doesn't, then there's not even going to be history, because that's what we're heading toward. This whole way of life with no time and just going through the motions and a million things that you have to do, but you can't focus on one thing, just doing one thing and doing it fully. Then it's going to be a time where history won't even be censored. It's just no one will think about it. No one will think about yesterday. No one will care. And there won't be strong individual cells. The people will just think that humans were always like that they were always soft, jelly-like vessels for stimulation and content. That's what we're heading towards. But if we can win some freedom and individuality back, it will be a refreshing of this culture, and it will be highly individual. It won't be about the Star Spangled Banner. It won't be about the flag. I've always thought that these flags and symbols were cheap. They were exterior. They're not actually foundations of a strong individual cell. Um, the foundations of a strong culture is the family, and the family in America is very weak, right? A lot of divorce, a lot of single moms, a lot of this stuff, right? Now, this is just like, you know, Florida. I saw the Florida Panthers game. Florida Panthers fan, up 3-2 on the Edmonton Oilers. I see the game yesterday. I love this team. The team is beautiful. Everything about them. But some of the fans, like the Florida fans, will chant USA, USA, because they're playing against Edmonton, right? And it's just the dumbest thing I can ever imagine, because the guy that's just killing the series, scoring game-winning goals, is Brad Marchand, Canadian. The guy who has 15 goals in a single postseason is like the roughest, toughest guy on your team. Sam Bennett, Canadian. Best coach in the league, Paul Maurice, Canadian. The captain of your team is from Finland. You have a Russian goalie. And you're chanting USA just because you're in Florida and this team is from Edmonton. But the spirit of your team is people from all different nations, and they're not playing for the American flag. Like, they're playing for each other. They're playing for themselves, for the spirit of their locker room, the relationships between individuals, their families, their locker room. They're playing for each other. And they love the fans too, but like, that's what it is. It's their own thing. And then, but you could even say Kachuk, Matthew Kachuk, as American as it gets. But his personality is that he treats he treats the janitor the same way he treats the coach. And even though he's like, he plays, he's very showy, and he almost carries himself in an arrogant way, but his actual personality is like super humble, and he doesn't see himself as better than anybody. So the most popular American guy on your team has such like, those are true American values. He lives the true American values, but that's not the Star Spangled Banner and the flag. That's work hard, have fun, don't complain, but when someone tests you, show teeth. That's the thing. So, but you chant USA. It's a scam. Now, I want to go back to what we mentioned earlier as we conclude this. Legitimacy. Anybody can dress up as a cop and arrest somebody, pretend to arrest somebody, shoot somebody, and this hurts the legitimacy of law enforcement, and that's true. To which I say, yeah, it exposes the problem with law enforcement, because at the end of the day, it makes no difference whether it was a real cop that kicked down your door or a fake cop. Whether it's a real cop or no, who says they're allowed to do it? Who says they're allowed to kick down your door? No one is allowed to take anyone's freedom, including like thieves, pedophiles, rapists, and killers. Now, those groups of people, they should have their door kicked down and they should be brought to justice, yes. But even then, no one is magically allowed to do it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's still kicking someone's door down. You don't have a magical universal right to take anyone's freedom or life. But there is a time to take someone's freedom or life. But then all you have is a claim. All you have is claims. And that's what freedom is all about. It's willful action, individual action based on a rightful claim. Your only defense is the objective right of your claim. It's people settling disputes out in the open. Reason, objectivity, property laws. It's not something magical. It's not just because you're doing it for your country. It's not anything abstract. It's very concrete. You have to state your claim openly and you have to defend it. I would kick somebody's door down myself if I have a strong claim that that person did something to me or someone I care about. Then I do it. But when it's collective, crimes against the country, the flag, the welfare system, or all these complex, multi-layered things that have to do with other people that I don't know, that is so far away from what is common sense right. Because it's not common sense that I'm talking about. Common sense is not the backbone of freedom, but it is sense of self. Sense of self, meaning a sense of boundaries, meaning what is actually mine and what it doesn't belong to me. It's where others begin and where your boundaries stop and when the boundaries of others begin. And having that being clearly defined. That's true common sense. But we've gotten so far away from that some of these immigration agents, they're wearing black bandanas and no uniform. That's hurting the legitimacy of law enforcement. And anyway, what law are they enforcing? Someone crossing the border and is living a normal life now? Who has a rightful claim against them? Like, if you stand at the border, I get it. You could do that. You can obstruct. But they're already here. They're already living their life. You fucking cat is out of the bag. You're gonna go kick down their door now or grab them off the street? Now, the politicians tell us that these guys that they're arresting are criminals and rapists. And hey, some of them have to be. I'm sure some of them have to be. Some of them are. But when we're talking about making that claim, that individual claim, a way stronger individual claim can be made against criminals and rapists in positions of power. And that's even despite every aspect of life being slanted in favor of the power structure, of course, right? So these people that are criminals in power, they have all of the things working for them to be able to stay concealed and operate, behind closed doors. Everything's slanted in favor of a covert predator like that in a position of power, and yet we see it all the time. All the time it comes to the surface that this person was using his position of authority to do crime and violence. So where's the common sense there? Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense 250 years ago. And it's all true today. I could just publish that. It's all true today, but we need to rewrite it. We need to rewrite it and call it sense of self. Because the self has been sacrificed to the common. Common sense means something way different today. And I don't use the term anymore. It's about sense of self. All right, that's it. Enjoy your Sunday. Warm summer to everyone. Go Cats. And I see you next week on This Week in Tyranny.